everyone. Today's session, let me begin with a question. What would you do if your maid or your servant steals anything from your house? Yes, come on. Obviously, the first reaction is that we will start scolding that person, okay? And we will do everything that could embarrass and humiliate the human and the person who has stolen things. Okay? It's a general norm. It is a normal human behavior. Okay? But would everyone have the courage to have patience and think differently? Why did a person steal? Or why would a person steal something? The person who has been working in your house, the person who is so loyal, who has been so loyal to you, why all of a sudden that person is compelled to do something like this? Do we ever think in that way? I'm not saying that you must forgive the people who do wrong things. No. But I'm saying let us try to modify the behavior. Let us try to change the way in which we take things. Okay? Is it possible that we can change the person's behavior? Is it possible that we can change the person's habit? Even if the person is into the habit of stealing. So that today's lesson, the thief's story, is something which throws light upon thinking differently and treating a thief in a different manner. And that different manner definitely happened to change the thief's behavior completely. So let us begin with our today's story, the thief's story, which is written by Ruskin Bond. Do you know who Ruskin Bond is? Keep thinking. 1 minute. Come on, I hope you're thinking. Thief Story by Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond is an Indian writer, but he is from the British descent. He is especially a children's story writer. He has composed a lot of literature for the children, okay? And lot of literature, that too, wonderful literature. It's not just any cartoon literature or anything. His writings include all the genres. It includes humor, it includes moral values, it includes the beauties of nature. It is absolutely, you can say he has a varied kind of literature for the children. And therefore, rightly, Indian government has recognized his role in the children's literature. He has been awarded the Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan and also the Sahitya Academy Award. And so let us learn about this wonderful story, a thief story by Ruskin Bond. Here we begin. Here it begins with the narrator speaking. So like one of the characters of the story is narrating this story. Alright. So how does it begin? He says, I was still a thief. So who is this I? I is the narrator. Okay. The narrator of the story is also a part of it. So he says, I was still a thief when I met Anil. So we have two characters over here. One is the narrator and the other is a character called Anil. Who is this Anil? We will get to know gradually. I was still a thief when I met Anil, and though only 15, I was an experienced and a fairly successful hand. Now, what does he mean to say when he says that I was an experienced and a fairly successful man, a fairly successful hand? So, the narrator is only 15 years old. Okay, but what is he? He is an experienced and a fairly successful hand, means he is an experienced thief, right? He is an experienced thief. He's been doing it just at the age of 15. He's been robbing, he's been stealing quite often. He's into the habit of doing that. Anil was watching a wrestling match when I approached him. Okay, so what was Anil doing? Anil is another person, and he was watching a wrestling match when the narrator first approached him. Okay. He was about 25. So how old is Anil? Anil is 25 years old. He is 25 years old, and he was tall, thin. He was a tall, thin fellow. Tall and a thin fellow. Tall, thin fellow. Okay, he was a tall, thin fellow. Now, these two are the descriptions of the two people, alright? So, Anil was watching a wrestling match when means a narrator, first approached him. He was about 25, a tall, lean fellow. Tall, lean fellow, tall, thin fellow. Okay, and he looked easygoing. He looked easygoing. Easygoing means what? Easygoing for the narrator means the person who could easily be robbed, because he is thin, like, this person will not retaliate. Okay, what all he can do, the only thing he can do is just scream and shout and okay, chor 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 chor, mera purse leke bhag gaya and stuff like that. Okay, but he looked to be a good target, in short. I hadn't much luck of late and thought I might be able to get into the man's confidence. Okay, so he said, I did not have much luck, and then I felt that I would be able to get into the man's confidence. I would be able to steal the man. Steal who? Steal Anil. Okay. You look a bit of a wrestler yourself, I said. Okay. So now this narrator is getting into a conversation with Anil. Now see, what is the scene right now? There is a wrestling match going on. Okay, there are so many spectators over there, amongst which even Anil is one. Okay, and this fellow, this narrator, he finds Anil to be an easy target, and therefore he approaches him. Okay, therefore the narrator approaches Anil, and then he initiates a conversation. Okay, so you look a bit of a wrestler yourself, I said. A little flattery helps in making friends. A little flattery. You know what is flattery? It is an insincere praise. Insincere praise. Do you think the narrator really meant it for Anil when he praised him? Oh my God, you look like a wrestler yourself. You think a person who is tall and who's absolutely thin would become a wrestler? No, there are certain criteria for becoming a wrestler, right? Therefore, then also, like, just because the narrator wanted to initiate a conversation, he flattered Anil a little. So do you, he replied, which put me off a moment, because at that time I was rather thin. So this is some type of a story wherein the narrator was quite young. Obviously, we are told that he's 15 years old, and now that he's writing the story, could be that he has grown up into a young man. Okay, so he said, yeah, but then this fellow Anil also responded to him in the same manner. He said, yeah, if I look like a wrestler, even so, in the similar manner, even you look like a wrestler. And that was something which was not acceptable to the narrator. Okay, so well, I said modestly. What is modestly? Without, it is already given there. It is, without boasting, without making much of flattery, without making much of a style or something. Okay, so he said, well, I said modestly, I do wrestle a bit. What's your name? Hari Singh. I lied. Okay, so what did the narrator say his name was? The narrator said that his name was Hari Singh. Okay, but let me tell you, this is not his real name. This is not his real name. Okay, I lied. I took a new name every month that kept me ahead of the police and my former employers. Okay, so what did the narrator do all the time? Every time he stole something from someone, every time he robbed somebody, he always used to have a new name, so that he wouldn't be recognized, and he wouldn't come into the clutches of the police and his earlier employers. Okay. So after this introduction, Anil talked about a well-oiled wrestlers who were grunting. Now, what is grunting? These are the low sounds that are made by the wrestlers. When the wrestlers are fighting, like that kind of sounds they make, all right? So, he says this is these kind of lowly sounds that are made by the wrestlers. He was talking about them. Anil talked about the well-oiled wrestlers who were grunting, lifting and throwing each other about. I didn't have much to say. Anil walked away. I followed casually. Okay. So then Anil just walked away and who followed? The narrator followed casually. Just like that, without any intentions right now, the narrator followed him casually. Hello again, he said. I gave him the most appealing smile. The most appealing smile. Yeah, okay, fine. The most happiest. He's the happiest person of all. And he responded very well. I wanted to work for you, I said. Okay. All of a sudden, the narrator who had gone to rob, who had gone to steal something from Anil, okay, he said, I want to work for you. But I can't pay you. Anil said it honestly, straightforward. He said, you want to work for me, but then I cannot pay you. I do not have enough money to pay you. I gave him, okay, I thought that over for a minute. Perhaps I had misjudged my man. Perhaps I had misjudged my man. Now the narrator has a question mark in front of him. He says, maybe I just misjudged this fellow. I felt that this fellow could be an easy target. This fellow would not retaliate. This fellow would have some money also, wherein I can work with him and then I will be able to steal him. But then here, when the narrator offered Anil to work for him, Anil said, I cannot pay you at all. And therefore now the narrator thinks, oh my God, I guessed it wrong. Okay. I found this fellow to be worthwhile fellow for my adventure, but then it's not so. I asked, can you feed me? Can you cook? Okay. So the narrator asked Anil, can you feed me? Fine. Even if you cannot give me money for my work, would it be possible for you to just feed me? Okay. So the next question which Anil asked is, can you cook? Okay. So I can cook, I lied again. He said, I can cook. Narrator. Now see, lies upon lies he's saying. First of all, what was the first lie that he said? The first lie that he said was that his name was Hari Singh. The second thing, he expressed a wish to work for Anil. The third thing he said, I would, if you cannot give me any money, I would love to, would you cook, would you feed me? Okay. And next, he also lied that he could cook. Okay. If you can cook, then maybe I can feed you. Who is this? Who is the speaker? Is this Anil? Anil says, yes, that if you can cook, then definitely I can feed you. Okay. Don't expect me to cook for you and feed you. Okay. Now he took me to his room over the Jumma sweet shop and told me I could sleep on the balcony. But the meal I cooked that night must have been terrible because Anil gave it to the stray dog and told me to be off. Okay, now, as we all know that the narrator had lied that he could cook. Okay. The first day when Anil took him home, obviously the narrator was asked to cook, and the way the narrator cooked, it must have been so delicious that Anil had to give it away to the stray dogs. Okay, so obviously you can now understand the quality of the food that the narrator cooked. Okay, and therefore then Anil said, okay, fine, bhai sahab, you go. I don't need you anymore. Okay, but I just hung around smiling in my most appealing way, and he couldn't help laughing. But then what did he do? He just hung around. He just hung around means he said, I don't want to go. Okay, you told me you will feed me. I cannot cook. Now that you know that I cannot cook, it's fine. I mean, but I'm not ready to leave you. This is the narrator. Okay, and he stood over there smiling in front of Anil, and Anil, obviously, he could not stop laughing.